I don't swear very often, but Google, you have done a fucking shit job of GA4. They're forcing everybody over, and it's this half-baked, half-finished product that they're inflicting on people. Just looking there this morning, I was looking at GA3 versus GA4 for the exact same account, and they're still not populating any data on the GA4 account until 4 p.m. Pacific time. You know, if I want to look at today's data. Whereas about an hour and a half ago, I was looking, and there's already data in the GA3 account. And maybe on July 1st, whenever they stop populating GA3, this is going to change. But right now, if you're trying to do any kind of on-the-day optimizations as a buyer, and you want to corroborate your platform data with GA, you don't currently have that option.
It's all killer, no filler, and it is just like a few days until Google's GA4 Apocalypse. Is that what the A stands for in GA? Is the apocalypse they're forcing on everyone? Everyone's kind of scrambling. Richard, how are things on the Pillothouse side with this GA4 update coming up?
Yeah, on the Pillothouse side, we've got a pretty good handle on it. We've been encouraging clients to move for well over a year. And run the two in tandem, which was obviously ideal because that gives you your year-over-year comparisons. Because unfortunately, if you've left it to this late, then to get your year-over-year comparisons, you're going to be looking back at GA3 and GA4, and it's going to get really messy. But yeah, no. On the whole, we've been doing okay. I have to say, do we swear on this podcast? Do we like to swear?
Oh, we do.
Do we?
We swear, especially when things like this are happening.
Okay, good. Because Google, you have done a fucking shit job of GA4. You really have. And I don't swear very often, but man,
you don't.
They are. You know what? It feels like half a product, Eric. They're forcing everybody over, and it's this half-baked, half-finished, product that people they're inflicting on people. I mean, even today, I just went into one of our client reports there earlier. Now, I'm talking about the non-360 here. If you're on 360, you're laughing. They're fine, but of course, you're paying a lot of money for that. But
what's 360?
GA360. That's their premium paid product. You pay.
Oh, interesting.
You pay $100,000 or $120,000 a year, and you get access to what they call the 360 product, and it has, pretty much live updates and more functionality and stuff. But so if you're a really big company, then you've got it and you're fine. But I'm talking about the rest of us, the plebs, the normal people here.
SMBs.
Yeah. So I mean, just looking there this morning, I was looking at GA3 versus GA4 for the exact same account. And they're still not populating any data on the GA4 account until, we're sitting over here on Pacific time. I would say it takes until about 4 p.m. Pacific time for any data to show up in a GA4 property for today. If I want to look at today's data. Whereas already, I mean, what are we at, 11 a.m. here? About an hour and a half ago, I was looking, and there's already data in the GA3 account. So it's not, GA3 is not live, the free version, but there's data there which I can't get. And if you're one of the poor Meta buyers, Facebook buyers, who are looking to collaborate and corroborate the data up from the platform, through to GA, you're not going to be able to do that on GA4, at least not right now. So it's and even some of the reports, I mean, they're just not there. You go into the data-driven, the e-commerce conversion data on GA3, and you've got time spans and data conversion paths and stuff like that. Still not there. Sure, you can if you're skilled enough and you've got time, you can go into the explorations and you could probably dig something out. But I mean, that's functionality that people, most business owners, most marketing teams who aren't on, don't have a whole lot of resource, and they just want to go in and quickly click and get access to this stuff, and it's just not there in GA4. So
they fumbled the bag. They fumbled the bag. They forced this, and again, their hand is being forced. Just as a little, like I want to get into some practical things that people can do, to scramble and get set up as best they can. But just to remind everyone, this is happening because of the cookie apocalypse. This is happening because of restrictions that have been put on Google. Their ability to track customers has been diminished, so now they have to go to an event-based tracking system, which is different. Which is why they put so much pressure to roll it out this quickly.
Partly. I mean, it's still the basic version. The non-360 version is still, relying on cookies. I mean, it's still, yes, it's event driven, and don't get me wrong, a lot of what we see in GA4, the data is actually good, and I like some of the stuff that's in there. I probably came across as somebody who hates the whole product. I don't hate the whole product. I mean, I like the event driven side of it. I like the ability to be able to put in different parameters with these events and all sorts of stuff that most people won't get into. But for me, as a kind of pseudo data analyst, there is some good stuff in there. But what they haven't done is gone full server side with the product. And I was actually down in Mountain View at the Googleplex there a few weeks ago at one of their events. And I was chatting to somebody on the GA team, and I said, "Well, why didn't you just go for server-side tracking, with the whole product?" And they were like, "Well, we've got to have some justification for the expensive product versus the free product." It was pretty much there.
Yeah.
His line. I'm not sure that's an official line, but
no,
there's probably some, if not a whole lot of truth in that. So the data that you're going to see in GA4 isn't necessarily going to be better unless you go for one of these other server-side tracking options. And we've talked about these before, Eric, in the past. The likes of Elevar, Little Data, Triple Whale, Segment. There's a number of them out there, and that's just a few names. They will literally, they'll intercept. Particularly a lot of these work with Shopify, the big e-commerce platform. So literally they will intercept the data as it comes to the site. It fires off a first-party cookie to their server, sitting on the cloud, and then whenever you or I come back to the site, the cookie tracking is being done first-party on their server, which really cleans up. And then from there, the data gets sent through to GA or Google Ads or Meta or wherever, one of these other platforms. So in intercepting and storing the cookie themselves on their own server, that does turn it into server side, and it's a very fairly inexpensive way of getting proper server side tracking. And if you go down that route, then you're going to get really good data in GA. But if you don't, and you just settle for the default, be aware that the quality of the data isn't necessarily going to be any better than GA3. Sure, the event tracking, helps a little bit and does certain things, but the overall quality, the potential loss and lack of attribution, if somebody's using iOS 14.5 and onwards, or Firefox or one of these other browsers, that's not going to change unless you go full server side.
But GA3 won't exist, so it will be better.
Well, so what's actually happening, just to clarify, Eric, is that GA3 will still exist, and you'll be able to access that data for at least another year, but it's not going to populate. So there's no data will be added as of July 1st. So
wow, happening super quick. So we use one of these third party that makes your data first party players. Like I know Elevar is one we talked about a number of times on the podcast. Is it sort of client specific? We're agnostic to which one we work with, but do we generally work with one with all clients?
Elevar is the one that we work with most. They've been around for a while, and I met a couple of their people virtually, and and they seem to be on it, and they're not trying to do a whole lot of other stuff. So they're not complicating their product. Literally is, their product exists to improve the quality of the data being passed through to ad platforms and the Google Analytics platform. So it's a nice clean product. It's not too expensive. I think for up to, it's based now on the number of orders per month, maybe up to 10,000 orders a month. I think it's like $350 a month, something like that. So it's a fairly inexpensive way of doing it. I'm not saying that the likes of Little Data or Triple Whale or whatever are bad products. We've just sort of ended up with Elevar. A few of our clients were already running it, and so we kind of went down that route with them. So it's kind of the one that we know the best and we work with the most. And it's a good product.
Very cool. So what are your actionable, like, do you think most people are prepared for this? Do you think most people are just going to kind of wake up and be like, they've heard about it for so long, but do you think there's a good chunk of people that just haven't done anything about it?
There is, we've a couple of new clients have come on recently, and we've like, where's your GA4? And they're like, GA4? Oh yeah. Saw that come up or something on my GA3. It said something about, the big apocalypse countdown. And so, so there's still a small percentage. I don't know what it is, but there's definitely a small percentage of people who are going to get a bit of a shock on the first, or maybe these people don't even look at GA. Maybe they just, get all their data from their platform or their CRM or. Yeah, I'm not sure.
They're flying blind. It reminds me of the Thai taxi driver that drove us through a dust cloud by sticking his thumb to the windshield and driving to his thumb. That's the metaphor for trying to drive without analytics when you're scaling.
Absolutely.
So, what do you want to talk about today? Then, do you want to talk about the people, the stragglers? Do you want to talk about the people that have adopted it and aren't getting the best results from it? What do you want to focus on?
A little bit of both. So, I think for the stragglers, there's a couple of things that I would like to address, and obviously. We're 3 days away, so short period of time. And also then for some people who have, maybe been running at it, just want to make sure that, covering off a few things, maybe a few pointers I can give people just to get the best, the best out of it in the short term. So I think for people who, haven't done, if you haven't done anything, please do something right now, right this minute. Stop whatever you're doing and get over onto GA, your GA3, your current Google setup, and create a new property for GA4, and get that done. And if you're running something like Shopify, then there's the Google app, the Google Sales Channel, as it's now referred to. We'll do the connection for you. You literally say, I want to connect GA4. It'll ask you for your Google account login, which you put in, and then it says, oh yes, you've got this Google account associated. Do you want to connect this one? You click yes. I think in less than 30 seconds you can be up and running if you're running something like Shopify. WooCommerce and other e-com platforms will be very, very similar, and even WordPress. There's a couple of plugins off the top of my head, I can't remember, but that will make it really, really easy. You don't need to do any kind of know anything about code or placing stuff in the head or the body. Literally, you sort of run these plugins, put in your GA4 account number or data stream number, and off up and running. So the first thing is get an account set up, and get it connected to whichever platform. And if you've got any kind of dev help, I'm sure they'll be able to do that for you. Once you're set up, then you need to go through a couple of things. You need to connect your Google Ads account, obviously, if you're running one. Connect Merchant Center if you're running shopping ads through Google Ads, of course. Go into your data settings. There's one of the data settings. It's under the property section, the data settings. There's one of the items there called data collection, and in there's this thing called Google Signals Data Connection. And essentially what this is doing is allowing the personalization of ads and sort of better tracking of users when it comes to, some of particularly the Google sites that people might then go to, that you can then obviously, utilize if you're running YouTube ads or, maybe discovery ads, and particularly if you want to run retargeting ads. So it's basically, you're turning on consent for Google to do as much tracking as it possibly can, so that you can particularly retarget people. So that one's not turned on by default. So I would strongly encourage people to turn that on if you want to make the most out of the retargeting, Google's retargeting capabilities. Obviously, if you're in a data sensitive area or you're in a data sensitive industry, don't do it, or at least talk to your legal people before you do it. I'm not a lawyer. I'm a marketer.
It's not legal advice.
Yes. So disclaimer in there, Eric. We don't want to be sued. So those are the kind of the main things that you're going to want to connect up, and that's obviously going to get as much data coming into the property. I think the next thing, and obviously this will be for people who are setting up and maybe people who have already connected the property but they haven't really done much with it, is to get into the audience section. And again, this is within the admin part of Google Analytics 4, within the property settings. You can set up audiences, and these audiences are obviously people that you're going to want to retarget to ultimately, or at least do some kind of reporting on. And it's actually, this is one of the good things about Google Analytics 4. There's a lot of options in here that you can utilize, and some of them weren't readily available, or not as easily available in GA3. So there's now this thing called predictive audiences. When you go into create a new audience, there's this sort of start from scratch bit, and you can create your own custom audience. But they have got some sort of sections and templates that you can use. And one of them is this thing called predictive. And in there, they've got a number of audiences kind of that will pre-populate if you're getting enough data coming into your account. Now, it does take probably a few thousand, at least 1,000 anyway, probably a few thousand visitors a day to kind of tip over the limit that will start to populate. And obviously, if you've only just created your GA property yesterday, you're not going to get these predictive audiences today. You're going to take probably at least 30 days, I'm guessing, to populate. But if you've got enough data coming in on a daily basis and your account's been set up for probably at least 30 days, then these predictive audiences are really quite powerful. So you can get things like the likely 7-day purchasers audience. You can get a likely 7-day churning user audience, top spenders for 28 days, likely first-time purchasers within a 7-day period, and a likely 7-day churning purchasers audience as well. So those are really quite powerful audiences that you can target for first-time purchases, or stop them from churning. People who are already spending big, you could make them another offer. So those are really nice audiences that you can tap into. And even if you don't have the data for those predictive audiences, going in and creating an audience of purchasers, non-purchasers, people who go to your product pages, people who have added to cart, started the checkout process if you're an e-com business, you're going to want to go and set up those basic audiences right away and get those populating so that you can utilize those audiences. So definitely audiences are a big thing that I would encourage people to.
The silver lining of GA4. And these are just going to get better and better, I would imagine.
And it will, and I remember, unfortunately, I'm old enough and been in the field long enough. I remember the switches from the original GA to GA2, and then GA2 to GA3, and now I'm here for GA3 to GA4. So what actually happens is that typically the product is half baked in advance, and then the the rollover time happens, cutoff time happens, and then they do improve it. And I'm keeping my fingers crossed that come July, August, and certainly prior to Q4 this year, the product will improve. But right now, it really does feel kind of half baked. But obviously, it is what it is. So we've got to make the most of what we've been given, and certainly the setup and getting those audiences and things, populating as soon as possible are going to get people in good standing.
100%.
This episode is brought to you by Live Recover, an incredibly effective Shopify app that gives you access to an expert team of live agents who work on behalf of your brand to recover abandoned checkouts in real time. Live Recover is able to reach 6 times more potential customers than email or SMS automations because they have actual humans sending personally crafted messages to anyone who leaves their phone number at checkout. Live Recover doesn't conflict with your email and SMS tools like Klaviyo or Voyage SMS and can lift your top-line revenue by over 10%. Check them out and get a 30-day no-risk trial when you sign up at liverecover.com/DTC.
I think the next place I would go, Eric, would be to get people to think about the information that they would like to get out of GA4. And obviously there's a number of default reports in there, as bad as some of them are. But when you go into the report section, you've got your real time, you've got your life cycle, and you've got your user reports. And if I go into the life cycle reports, I can go into my acquisition section, and under there I've got my user acquisition, my traffic acquisition. But by default, the information that it gives defaults to the default channel group. There's a lot of defaults, and a lot of people, particularly small businesses, small to medium businesses, they don't think about channel groups. They're much more focused on source and mediums. Where are they spending their money? They're spending it on Meta. They're spending it on Google. They're spending it on TikTok. Whatever. So a lot of people think about source mediums, and I mean, sure, by default, there's some relatively interesting data in there about new users and engaged sessions per user and these event counts and whatever. But a lot of people and a lot of our clients, are e-com focused, and so that kind of default information that you're given, whether it's the dimension, i.e. the source medium channel grouping thing, or the actual metrics that you're being given, are not all that useful to a lot of people, I would say. So the next thing that I would encourage people to do is to really get into customizing the default reports, and pretty much every report that you go into in GA4, if you look up at the top right hand corner, there's the little pencil icon, the edit icon, and in there you can customize pretty much all of these reports. Now this is probably one of the good things about GA4, because you can essentially take that default report and then say, okay, I don't want I don't want what I get shown first to be the default channel group. I want it to be the source medium. So you can change the dimension that comes up by the first time you go into the report to be source medium and not default channel group. And then the metrics you can get into. Again, one of the better things about GA4 is that there's more metrics that are readily accessible. So if you're not interested in engaged sessions or engaged sessions per user, or the event count, you just want to focus on conversions and maybe some other e-com data like the number of first-time purchasers, the number of 31 to 90-day repeat purchasers, the what else could you get into? The first-time purchaser conversion rate. Those are actually all metrics that are now available, within a drop-down in the metrics section of the report customizations. So going in there and choosing the metrics that are most useful to you, to the business, is definitely something that I would encourage people to do as quickly as possible. Because I think what people are going to do are probably already doing is they're looking at these default reports and going, meh, not all that useful. But the data is actually in there, and the quick way and the best way of doing it is to go in and customize the reports. You can do a save as essentially and save and create a new report, and then you can actually customize the whole reporting screen to suit you. So you can create your whole section, of reports for yourself, your organization, using this kind of library option it's called, and you create these collections of reports. You throw all these custom reports that you create into your own kind of collection, and then they're available at the click of a button. Because even for me right now, the default reports I'm finding, I know where to go to, but I'm going into these default reports, and I'm changing this, and I'm adding this, and I'm changing that, and it's really tedious. So,
can you describe your dashboard? Can you describe, like, on a client by client basis, like what are the main reports? What does your dashboard look like?
Yeah,
at a high level?
Under the acquisition section, for sure, I'm looking at both user acquisition and traffic acquisition, but I'm defaulting to the source medium, not the channel group. And then I'm adding in the first-time purchaser metric, which obviously is huge for a lot of business who are trying to grow. You're not just focused on repeat conversions. You want your first-time purchasers. So we've got first-time purchasers metric. We've added in the user conversion rate would be a default. One that isn't there, believe it or not.
Yeah.
We're adding in the first-time purchaser conversion rate as well, and I take out the all events column. I take that one out because you only get 12 metrics on every report. Something that I should say. So you don't have this endless stream of columns of metrics. So I take out the event counts and add in those three. So the first-time purchaser, user conversion rate, and usually the purchase AOV. It's not called AOV in GA4. I think it's the average revenue per user, ARPU. I think it's called. Is the metric that you're looking for. So, and that basically gives you your average order value. So those are the four that I kind of add in by default, and I say I take that event one out. Sometimes I'll take one of the engaged sessions or something out, perhaps, and leave the engagement rate in and the engaged sessions per user in, just as a means of comparing against the different source mediums. But yeah, so that's my default for my user, for my acquisition reports. My engagement reports, I typically get into the landing pages, and again, I'll add in those metrics that I've just talked about there for the acquisition reports. And that whole engagement section is kind of meh. It gets into the events and the conversions, but when you drill down into that, it's not really an awful lot. And so really, under the engagement section, I'm pulling out the landing page report, customizing it, and then putting that into my own collection. And then the monetization section, which is the old e-commerce section of GA3. I'm going into the e-com purchases there, and doing that probably by item name, maybe depending on how it's being set up in maybe Shopify or whatever the e-com platform is there. If they've been nicely categorized, or you're running multiple brands. If you're a big enough organization, you're selling multiple brands, then I might look at the item brand. But those would be the main ones. And if I'd create separate reports then, per item category, per item brand potentially, and throw those into my my collection, my library. And then in doing just those kind of basic customizations, and it sounds maybe like a whole lot of work, but it's really not, because you've got the original one to work from. So literally you can sort of point and click, choose the dimension you want, add in the metrics, delete one of the other metrics. You can sort them, the order that they're displayed in, and literally I would say in probably half an hour you can get yourself a nice little custom setup with the main reports that you're looking for in your own nice little collection, and they're literally just one click away from being able to access them. So,
but there is issue with latency right now. Is that what you're saying? That you can set these reports up It sounds great, but you're not going to get as live data as you might have previously with GA3 right now?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a huge issue. So yeah, so for us sitting on the West Coast, it's about roughly 3 to 4 p.m. on any given day before we see any data coming into the GA4 account, which is terrible. and maybe on July 1st, whenever they stop populating GA3, this is going to change. I don't know.
Yeah.
But right now, that is the case. So if you're trying to do any kind of on the day optimizations as a buyer, and you want to corroborate your platform data with GA, you don't currently have that option.
So they better get that latency up by Black Friday, Cyber Monday, when you're really going to need those levers midday, right?
They a long time before Black Friday, Cyber Monday.
Yeah.
By the end of the summer, I'm fully expecting.
It'll all be AI by then anyway, so.
That's true.
To some degree.
Yeah.
Very cool. Any otother wisdom on GA4 to add here?
I think the other thing I would say is that, unfortunately, I don't know, but the way it is, the other main section within GA4 is this exploration section, which is essentially the custom report section that used to exist in GA3. But they've actually put some quite useful reports in there. and I think a lot of people would go into that exploration section and go, this looks scary. I have no idea what I'm looking at here, and they'll quickly back out again. However, I would encourage people to get in there because they've got this template gallery, which, while it's not hugely well populated right now, I'm guessing again, hoping perhaps that they'll add to this. But there are actually a couple of templates that people could usefully use, again, particularly on the e-com side of things. Quickly, a couple of them that I would do by default straight away for any of our clients. The funnel exploration report. So in GA3 there was that funnel in the goals section. So people are probably thinking it doesn't exist in GA4. It does, but it's in the explorations. And it's one of the template templates that's there. So have a look at the funnel exploration report. It literally is a click. The report kind of creates itself. You will need to go in and just change a couple of the metrics. I think by default it goes to start of session, start of visit, start of session, number of pages, and then conversions. But basically the first three sections are all the same. And then it jumps to the fourth section. So you just want to change that to, start of the session, or first time user, looked at a product page, added to cart, and then converted. That would be a nice simple funnel that you could create in a couple of minutes from that default that you've been given, and certainly that would be very useful in terms of telling you, what where people are going into the major parts of your e-com website. So funnel explanation. The next one would be to go into the user lifetime report. Now this is really interesting because it tells you by medium, I think is the default, how long people are being engaged on your site, and also the lifetime value in terms of revenue from each of these mediums. And of course you could change medium to source and other dimensions, but by default, it is actually a really useful report. Again, if you're running an e-com business, it's going to tell you, where you're spending your, are you spending your money wisely in terms of the source medium. So the user lifetime report would definitely be another one. There's a use case report called conversion, and that actually will create essentially 3 reports in one, based around the conversions per day and per source medium. So that can be a really interesting report. And the final one I would maybe get people to look at is there's a cohort exploration report, which is essentially the cohorts being the people who come to your site, on a daily basis, and then the number of days subsequent to that. So if I visit today and I come back tomorrow and I go back the next day, I'll be bucketed in, the people who came first time today, and then what happened in any subsequent visits on the subsequent days. So if you're an e-com business, having a look at, do people come in, on a day, on any specific day, and then, does it take them 3 days to convert, 7 days to convert, 20 days to convert? The cohort exploration report will actually tell you that. And it's just, again, one of these default templates that you can sort of click. It'll automatically create that report. And it's a pretty interesting and useful one in terms of telling you, how long you're having to wait whenever you first send somebody from, your Facebook campaigns or your Google Ads campaigns, to the site. So I'd encourage people to look at that one. So that's funnel, user lifetime, conversion, and cohort reports are kind of my go-to in that exploration section. And again, a few minutes we'll have those set up and we'll provide really useful information for businesses. So.
Very cool. Well, it sounds like these are some great best practices, and that the ball is, once you get these in place, feels like the ball will be in Google's court. You can get it, then it's not your problem anymore for having set it up. It's Google's problem for not populating the data fast enough, etc. So you want to get the ball in Google's court. You got to listen to this podcast, follow Richard's advice. If you have any questions, just try reaching out to me. I'll shield Richard from the GA question. Try reaching out to me, Eric at directtoconsumer.co, if you have any specific questions about GA, and I'll find the right answers for you. Yeah, Richard, awesome. Thanks for the update here. And I think we'll have to, we'll stay in touch on this and see, because I'm excited for, with this new platform, what other stuff they can kind of roll out this year that will move the needle even further. Yeah,
I'm hopeful and, reasonably excited, that they will, because the basis of it is a good product. They just need to, put some more time, resources, and maybe they've got it all sitting there on the 1st of July. They're going to flick a button, or some date they're going to flick a button, and it's going to be a really good product. It's got the potential to be a really good product. So let's stay in touch and see what it turns into in the coming months.
Also, if anyone's listening to this podcast and you need a cutting board, I'm also going to throw a link to Richard's. Richard makes the coolest cutting boards you've ever seen. And I'm going to throw a link to the show notes in this podcast, just see if we can move a few cutting boards for him. Because if you're looking for, a gift or any kind of event, I think did we already have Mother's and Father's Day? Yeah, we already did.
I don't know. You could do.
I don't know what the big next one is.
Lots of occasions.
But if you want to know about GA4, he's your man. If you want to know about cutting boards, he's even better. Thanks again, Richard. This was great.
Appreciate it. Thank you, Eric.
Thanks for listening to today's episode. If you're not getting the D2C newsletter, you can subscribe for free at directtoconsumer.co. And if you want to learn more about Pilothouse's all-killer, no-filler services, take off to pilothouse.co. I'm Eric Dick, and this has been the D2C Podcast. We'll see you next time.